Welcome to the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show. It is June 11th, 2020. This is episode number 12. Since our first show, we have worked to bring to you what the name of our show says, revolution, an actual revolution, to overthrow this system and to bring about a new society, a new form of government, where people could go to work to overcome all forms of oppressions that plague humanity today and which threaten the planet itself. We brought you the science, we brought you the strategy, we brought you the plan to prepare for and to make a real revolution. And we introduce you to Bob Avakian, the revolutionary leader who has developed all of this, the science, the strategy, and the constitution for a new socialist republic in North America, and who is leading today. And this episode will bring to you a deep orientation and sharp exposures that are real leadership from Bob Avakian for how to understand and act in this moment of a beautiful upsurge, and how to take that further and prepare today for the time when we really could lead millions of people to go all out and bring this beast of a system down through an actual revolution. You know, we brought this to you, but we were doing so at a moment where to many of you this seemed far off, if not impossible. But with what is beginning to birth in the streets today, over the last 2 weeks, since the brutal and wanton murder, lynching really, of George Floyd, the potential for big change can be seen in the faces and in the spirit and in the steps and resistance of all of you who've been out in the streets. So today's episode of the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show will bring this alive and also highlight the struggle that is right now before us to not let this movement get derailed or crushed. You know, in several episodes over the first 12 weeks of this show, we've quoted the poem from William Butler Yeats, the great poet, who wrote a poem called The Second Coming, where he said, much quoted, "The worst are full of passionate intensity, while the best lack all conviction." Well, in the last 14 days, that's been reversed. And it's a tremendous thing to see the best, the youth out there, full of passionate intensity and passionate conviction that everything that has been going on in relationship to white supremacy and to police murder, and even more than that, must be no more. So what I want to do is get right to what we're going to be doing in this episode. I would say this is, again, the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show, and my name is Andy Zee. I'm the host of the show. So the first thing we're going to do in this show, and that's going to run through it, is we're going to show, the first thing will be a piece, really an orientation and address to the movement right now called Nothing Less from Bob Avakian. This is a very important orientation. And after that, there's 3 more short segments that are guidance to the movement right now, political orientation from Bob Avakian. Wait, you'll see it soon. Then we're going to have a segment of Pete on the street, our cameraman, and also our intrepid reporter on the street, who's going to bring you the voices from the streets themselves. And then I'm going to have a conversation with Luan, another host of this show, about how you can prepare today and become part of the movement for an actual revolution, the 526. And last, America Goddamn, a special song. So before we go to these segments, I want to make an opening commentary. The struggle that's begun must not be derailed. The aspirations and the dreams that have been evidenced in your faces and in the actions of millions of people here and around the world must not be allowed to die. And as we continue to struggle together in the streets in growing numbers, big questions are posed. How can we really bring about a world where white supremacy and the police forces and fascists are not enforcing that white supremacy? How can we really bring about a world where no one is abused, misused, abused and exploited and oppressed and repressed, where the very planet we live on can flourish? There is a way forward to do that. It's in the work and the leadership of Bob Avakian, BA, and that's what we bring you every week and here at revcom.us. But I want to make 3 points about not letting this struggle get derailed. The first point is, this is not the time to step things down. This is the time to step things up. There'll be increasing voices who say to you, this isn't going to last forever. Then comes the hard work of actionable policies and electing me or electing people to bring about these policies. But policies to do what, you must ask? To do what? to overcome all forms of oppression that are built into this system, to treat immigrants as full human beings, to uproot white supremacy. They can't do that even if they wanted to do it. When you have a system that is structured on the foundation of white supremacy, woven through every thread of it, when you have a system that's based on the competition between people who own the corporations and the mines and the banks over who can exploit people more viciously than the next to make a bigger and bigger profit, when you have people competing with each other and such rampant inequality, that's all that's about. All of that is what's concentrated in the capitalist imperialist system. That's an international system of exploitation and oppression. You have to have a force that's going to enforce that and repress people's desire to be free of that. And so whatever they might rename a police force to be, it's going to have to carry out that function as long as this system is intact. When you have a revolutionary society that's aimed at the emancipation of humanity, security forces will be a far different thing. So you need to stay in the streets and keep struggling. Don't stop. Don't whittle down your aspirations or your dreams. Don't listen to people that tell you now's the time to do the serious work. You are doing the serious work that needs to be done, but you need to ask the serious questions and go to where there are serious answers. Go to RevCom. Go to this show. And I want to commend especially the piece that's up on revcom.us right now. 1, 2, 3, 4. We've seen this shit before. And that's about how not to get derailed. Now, my second point on staying in the streets is this. We face a fascist regime in the Trump-Pence fascist regime. You saw him with his Bible, with not even his Bible, standing up there in front of the church, signaling to all that they're about bringing about a Christian theocracy. This is really important that this get taken on because all of your dreams, all of the aspirations you have, all the space in society for dissent will be crushed if they are able to succeed in consolidating fascism. Fascism means that the rules of the game are changed. It's open, terroristic dictatorship as the form through which this system rules. But I do have a special announcement to make. June 14th, Sunday, is a birthday. The organization RefuseFascism.org has posed a question. What is the fitting way to celebrate the birthday of Donald Trump? Lafayette Park, 4 p.m. Be there and everywhere. And go to the website refusefascism.org to find out what you can do to be part of that fight and to drive out the Trump-Pence regime. Okay, so point 3 of why we have to continue this struggle and what we're up against and to understand what we've accomplished is that in the 2+ weeks that people have been out in the streets in growing numbers, and first in a rebellion in Minneapolis and then continuing in struggles all around the world, there is a real sense of possibility. Look, just think back to 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, and many people were filled with despair of no future, no school, no work. There was police murders were continuing around the country as they have been, 1,000 a year. And, there were significant protests and outrage when Ahmaud Arbery was killed in what was really like slave catchers, these vigilantes riding through the streets. But even as there was protests then, there was a certain resignation. People were angry, but they were also saying that they were tired. How many more times do we have to go out and protest and we make this impassioned plea, but then nothing is done? Well, it feels different now because of what you've done. We've had people on this show who were part of the Bernie Sanders campaign. Now, that's not our strategy for change. We don't think that would lead to the fundamental change, but people had aspirations for something different, and those were dashed as he was driven out from that presidential campaign. Millions of youth here and around the world protested the environment, but that too got whittled down to within the system, and the protests hadn't continued, even as there are still very dedicated people working on the environment. And all of this now, all of these people are out in the streets. So when we say here that we've taken initiative and we must not give that initiative up, this is part of what we mean. We've begun to shatter. We've put a crack in that ceiling on our political imaginations of what is actually possible. That's been cracked open, but we have to go further than that crack. Look, you've been changed and we've been changed, And yes, there is the danger that all of this could be crushed or derailed. But there is also, and this is the most important and salient fact, there is the potential that you can see out there now and you can feel it for something radically better. That must be realized. So what I want to do is go to Bob Avakian right now in this address to this moment that it's called Nothing Less, which brings in a vivid and scientific way the potential and what we must all do to realize the possibility of a world where humanity could really flourish. Let's go to that.
This is Bob Avakian speaking. To all those who have risen up so powerfully and are demonstrating to say no more after the murder of George Floyd and all the other cold-blooded murders by police. To all those who have drawn inspiration from this righteous uprising. To all those who have had the blinders forced from their eyes and have been provoked to think anew about what kind of country it is that we live in. This has raised the biggest questions about what is needed for people everywhere to live fully as human beings. An end to institutionalized racism and murder by police, nothing less. An end to any way people anywhere are used, abused, and brutalized, nothing less. We need a world without white supremacy and male supremacy. A world where no one is regarded as alien. A world without war, where people from all over the globe, with a beautiful flowering of diversity, act together for the common good and are truly caretakers of the earth. This is not just a dream. The possibility for this is being powerfully demonstrated in this uprising of the people, of all different races and genders, from all parts of the world, refusing to remain silent or stay passive while all this oppression and brutality goes on. To make all this real, we need revolution, nothing less. A strategic plan for how to make this revolution, and a sweeping vision and concrete blueprint for a radically different and much better world, where all this can become possible, can be found in the work I have done, including the Constitution for the new Socialist Republic in North America. You can learn more about this revolution and become part of making it a reality by going to revcom.us and joining with the Revcoms. We do not need to live in this world where so much of humanity suffers so unnecessarily under this system of capitalism imperialism that cannot exist without exploiting and degrading people, suffocating their humanity, and killing them without mercy. We can do much better. Don't listen to talk about how it can never happen. Look around you. What seemed impossible yesterday is happening right now. Revolution. Why should we settle for anything less?
Hey, this is Pete on the street, and we have a special guest with us.
Hi, it's Luan from the RNL show.
So why are we out here?
So we're out here because people need to know, people need to have this demand to drive out Trump. And we are out here to also to hear from different people why they're out here, what's driving them to be out here in this moment. This is day 12. And you think about it, what's already been done, with a lot of people in the streets. And we're out here with Refuse Fascism out now, calling to add the demand to drive out Trump into the struggle against police brutality and to end white supremacy. So, we're here.
So let's go to the footage.
We're out here because we're too late, let's say that. We're out here because it should have been happening years ago. I mean, it tried to 60 years ago, didn't work. So we're out here because clearly we need to show that we're dedicated to change for all of our brothers and sisters, for all around the world. We need this to happen. Everyone is here for you. We want this to fucking happen.
From where I come from a very small town in Pennsylvania, and to think like this and say this stuff, people would chastise you. And that's messed up, So I think that's what I finally feel, is that I can say what's right, what I feel is right, and I'm not going to shut up about it anymore.
I forgot who said it, but somebody said racism is like dust. It's in the air all the time, but until you shine a spotlight, you can't see it. So as long as we keep shining that spotlight, we can clean out the dust.
Fuck Trump. Black Lives Matter. They need to free the Mexicans and ISIS too. Shit. And stop killing all people.
Violence? It's the police. Hey, those of you in the media and politicians who want to talk about violence in the protests instead of keeping the focus where it should be, on the murder of George Floyd, on top of all the other murders by police. Why don't you go preach to the police about violence? They're the ones brutalizing, terrorizing, and murdering people time after time. And how about arresting all these killer pigs and charging them with what they are guilty of? Murder of the most depraved kind.
So that was Bob Avakian. Violence? It's the police. And that followed Pete on the Street and Luan as well. How you doing, Luan?
I'm doing all right. And you?
All right. So you guys were out on the street interviewing people in the midst of the protests. And as we're out there meeting people for the first time, we've talked to people about the 526, because this is a segment where we want to talk to people about how do I get involved in the revolution? How can I take this up? What if I'm not in Los Angeles or New York where there's a revolution club? How could I start one myself? And even if you're here, what are these clubs all about? Well, we have something we call the 526, and this is actually a breakthrough in terms of the new communism and what Bob Avakian has developed. In a very popular way, it gives you the tool to understand what is this revolution all about, and what's the basis for it? Why is it that we need a revolution? How could we actually make a revolution? Why do we say it's possible to win enough people to make this revolution? It's all within this. You know, it poses the question that this system, it's an answer to the question, this system cannot be reformed, it must be overthrown, and is there a way out of the madness? Well, yes, there is, and this is what it is. So I think let's get into it. This is what it looks like on this broadsheet, which you can get this broadsheet by writing to revcom.us, or once the bookstores reopen after this COVID crisis in Berkeley and New York, you can get it there. You can write to revcom.us and they can send it to you. Or write to us here. We'll send you copies. There's also a leaflet version that Luan will that you have right there. So, and it's on the website itself. So, the 526, 5 stops, 2 choices, 6 points of attention. Easy to remember. Concentrating the path to getting organized for an actual revolution. And let's start with these 5 stops. These are 5 horrific forms of oppression that this system can't reform. So
the first stop is stop the genocidal persecution, mass incarceration, police brutality, and murder of black and brown people.
Stop the patriarchal degradation, dehumanization, and subjugation of all women everywhere, and all oppression based on gender or sexual orientation.
Stop the wars of empire, armies of occupation, and crimes against humanity.
Stop the demonization, the criminalization, and deportations of immigrants, and the militarization of the border.
Stop capitalism, imperialism from destroying our planet.
So, Luan, these are 5 things that this system can't reform. And we have a standing challenge to anybody who you tell us how, under this system of capitalism, imperialism, you could actually solve any of these things and really stop this. Maybe for a little bit you can mitigate lessen one of these, but you can't stop these under capitalism. And that actually provides the basis for revolution, because we found this out in the streets in the last 2.5 weeks. Most of the people we meet care about not just one of these, but many of these, if not all of them. And that could be millions of people who feel strongly about all of this. And if they have the determination to stop each of these things, and they can't be stopped under the system, and we give them a way through the strategy for revolution to actually act on them and bring about a world through this Constitution for a New Socialist Republic developed by Bob Avakian, well, then you've actually got a basis for actually winning a revolution. So then come the two choices. Why don't you read that?
We have two choices. Either live with all this and condemn future generations to the same or worse if they have a future at all, or make revolution. And that's a quote from Bob Avakian in his speech that he gave in 2018, why we need an actual revolution and how we can really make revolution.
So I think, throughout this episode and throughout also all of our shows, we really try to bring those two choices to life. And that's why we began even today saying, hey, there's people who are going to be out there struggling with you that, well, no, we can make things a little bit better. And there's people out there who are struggling to crush you. And yet there's the potential in these 5 stops and in the struggle of the people for that second choice to make revolution. But then there's a question that's posed of, well, what does it mean to be organized for an actual revolution? What does that organization look like? What do these revolution clubs actually do? So these are the 6 points of attention for the revolution. I think it'd be great if you could read them as a member of the Revolution Club and also of the tour from the Revolution Clubs that's now located in Los Angeles, trying to bring people into this revolution.
So these are the 6 points of attention for the revolution, and we call on you who want to see a different world to take these up, spread them, read them, live by them, and talk about them, especially right now in this moment on the streets. So it starts like this. 1. We base ourselves on and strive to represent the highest interests of humanity, revolution and communism. We do not tolerate using revolution for personal gain. 2. We fight for a world where all the chains are broken. Women, men, and differently gendered people are equals and comrades. We do not tolerate physically or verbally abusing women or treating them as sexual objects, nor do we tolerate insults or jokes about people's gender or sexual orientation. 3. We fight for a world without borders and for equality amongst different peoples, cultures, and languages. And we do not tolerate insults, jokes, or derogatory names about a person's race, nationality, or language. 4. We stand with the most oppressed and never lose sight of their potential to emancipate humanity, nor of our responsibility to lead them to do that. We work to win people of all backgrounds to take part in the revolution and do not tolerate revenge among the people. 5. We search for and fight for the truth, no matter how unpopular, even as we listen to and learn from the observations, insights, and criticisms of others. 6. We are going for an actual overthrow of the system and a whole better way beyond the destructive, vicious conflicts of today between the people. And because we are serious, at this stage we do not initiate violence, and we oppose all violence against the people and among the people.
So this is really important for this moment as people are just getting involved in the revolution. These are radically different when you really get into them from anything else that's out there. I think a lot of people hear these for the first time and the sentiments of them, the morality of them resonates with people. If you get into them and they're very deep and they really are a concentration of the new communism developed by Bob Avakian. We don't have a lot of time to get into it tonight, but this is something we could spend some time really digging into. So maybe you could just talk a little bit about this and also how people can get involved.
Yeah, so these are things that they're way in opposition to how things dominantly are in the society. And you think about what would it mean if people in their mass, if many people actually took up these points of attention, living by them, fighting for them, having this as a real pole that's an alternative force in society, and what that could mean, for the future of humanity. And that's kind of what we're calling on people to be a part of doing now. And, people can connect up with this, take it up. There's major revolution clubs in Chicago, New York City, LA. You can connect up on social media, whether Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. We can include the handles to the different clubs down below in the description, but people should get connected by going to revcom.us and really, get a copy for yourself. This is something that we all can be getting into and working together to make real in this moment.
Yeah, again, these are really important. Just any one of them, like number 4, where it says we work to win people of all backgrounds to take part in the revolution and do not tolerate revenge among the people. This is a big hallmark of the new communism. I think probably on the next episode, we're going to do something about how in Chicago right now, the authorities and different people are trying to set black and brown people against each other and fuel revenge. And this is something they did in the 60s too. But a point of attention like this goes right up against that and says, you want to be free, we got to get free of that kind of thinking. So look, I just would think it would be just helpful if there's, we on the other side of your flyer, there's a few things that we're asking people to do. Maybe we could just briefly say a couple of them, and then we need to move on with this episode.
Yeah, so we're going to include the full thing of this flyer in the description, but I'll just read I can tell you about some of the basics that are there. The first one starts off with fight the power and transform the people for revolution. And this one's talking about, as people are stepping out and getting into the streets, more of this needs to come forward, and people should take up this 526, getting that out, spreading it, but actually getting deeper into what does it mean to be fighting, for revolution, and as well as not getting caught up in all the ways the system has people thinking that this is the only way things could be. The second one is actually watching the RNL show and getting into revcom.us. And the third one, which I want to draw some attention to, is getting into Bob Avakian and actually getting into the works and actually getting into the leadership that he's providing right now and overall and making revolution. And that's something that people can do through getting into the Constitution, reading some of the different pieces that we've been putting out on the show, and even, some of the videos that we're including in this episode too. So, take this with you and get into it deeper as you're fighting in the streets and being amongst people.
Okay, that's great. So on that last note, we're going to go right now to a short segment from Bob Avakian reading a recent piece he wrote called Sounding Like Southern Segregationists. It's not just Trump, it's the Democrats. And after that speech, Luan recorded an interview earlier today with Miles Solay from the band Outernational, and then we're going to play a new song of theirs, America Goddamn.
Sounding like Southern segregationists. It's not just Trump, it's Democrats too. Here's Donald Trump echoing white supremacists in the South during the 1960s with his tweet about shooting people protesting the murder of George Floyd. When the looting starts, the shooting starts. Trump called the protesters thugs to justify shooting them. Every decent person condemns Trump. But remember when Obama called the youth in Baltimore thugs when their anger boiled over after the murder of Freddie Gray by police? And what about those Democratic Party politicians now, like the governor of Minnesota and all these other officials who speak honeyed words about justice, but then impose emergency police powers and call out the National Guard to attack the people's protest against outrageous injustice? Some of these Democratic Party politicians are not even ashamed to sample Southern segregationists from the days of the Civil Rights Movement, talking about outside agitators coming in and causing trouble with protests. All this is yet more proof that this whole system has to go.
time. I mean, for my entire life, I've been raised hearing about racism, seeing racism, and I'm white, and what can we do? Oh, we can vote. We can be nice to people. We can, try to make the future better. Well, the future's now. We are the future. This is the time. If we band together, if everyone in America can band together against the evil and the racism and all the hate and the pedophilia and everything that's been going on that the police are protecting and the politicians are protecting, then the change is now. We are the future. This is what we've been waiting for. This is the time. This is the year. 2020 is the year that we take America back. Actually, for the first time, we take America. For the first time, people are people, and we're going to treat them as such, and we're not going to stand for any less. No less.
How many times have you been out here?
Today's my first day because I've been working every day, and it's been killing me hearing the chanting. And now I'm finally out here, and I'm like, every second I'm not working, I want to be out here with the people as long as it takes. Every day for the rest of my life, as long as it takes.
Did that change from before?
Through the years, I remember protests happening, and I was not a part of it. And I knew that there were problems, but I was blind. And this year, that's not happening anymore. Our eyes are opened. People who knew of the problem but hadn't really thought too much into it, we're really thinking into it. We're serious about it, and we really want change, and we're not going to stand for anything less. So we're listening. We are.
What's the problem? The whole damn system! What's the problem? The whole damn system! What's the solution? Revolution! What's the solution? Revolution! What's the problem? The whole damn system! What's the problem? The whole damn system! What's the solution? Revolution! What's the solution? Revolution!
Do you see something different in that we have a Trump-Pence regime now that's different than before?
Yeah, I mean, he's just certainly given people more of a vocal voice in their racism. Yeah. He's allowed it to kind of be a ruthless kind of place where people don't have love for each other, and he's actually intensified the feelings of racism that once existed. His Make America Great Again is not an accident. It's not a mistake that it's phrased that way.
Did that change anything in your thinking? Your grandson telling you to, they want to come out?
Well, I was proud that they wanted to make a change because so many young kids are, they see stuff and it doesn't faze them for whatever reason. So I was really proud that they did want to take a step to see what they can do to make a change. And that's what we need. We need everybody stepping up to try to make a change.
You guys should show your sign here. Stand together. What brought you guys? Why did you guys want to come out?
On social media, I saw a lot of black people getting killed by the police, and that's what brought me out here.
I just wanted to be a part of this and just help and just be a part of the community and help out as much as I can.
And I've protested for years where I'm from in North Carolina, and this has the energy of something I've never seen in this country. It's like the tipping point, and this is the point I think where we're going to start seeing where people fall on the right side of history. And I think what's going to happen is all the phony liberalism, all the phony progressives are going to be shown for what they are. And we're actually going to have progression in this country when everyone's together and like this. And it's just like all love, but it's all the rage that's been building up over the years. And I'm glad that it's finally happening. So.
You want to say why you're holding that sign? It says, take to the streets and stay.
Take the streets and stay, because if we stop and we give in after they shave tiny bits off the LAPD budget and think that they're actually fixing a systemic problem, then we're gonna lose. We have to keep the pressure on. We cannot stop. We cannot be satisfied with small incremental change, because it's not gonna stop the injustice. It's not gonna stop the oppression. We need that systemic change to be happening now.
You want to say what's on the other side?
Trump and Pence out now. I mean, it's a pretty clear message. I mean, we've had horrendous leadership that's traumatized this country for 3.5 years now. And hopefully what we can do from here is galvanize some of this energy to get him out of power.
That was for so many people who didn't come out. What actually changed for you that made you want to come out?
Honestly, when I read the last words of these people, these black people that the police have murdered, when I read their last words, mama, calling out for mama, when I read these, they're just people and they've been murdered. George Floyd was murdered. on the ground like an animal. We're not going to stand for that anymore. And this education that's going on, where we're all spreading it, that's what's going to make more people join us. That's what's going to get more people out here on the streets with us. And one day, there'll be so many of us and so little of them that won't even, history will be changed. And that time's right now. Nobody's standing by anymore watching. And the more and more people that see that, we have safety in numbers. We got to come together.
And when people get hit by batons, rubber bullets, more people need to come out.
Absolutely. Fine, come out, shoot me. I'm fucking white. I've never had to worry about that in my life. Come out and shoot me. They'll put my face on the news. All the white people will care when I'm shot on the ground. Fine, come out, do it. I'm not afraid. Black people have been afraid for so long. We have got to come out. It doesn't matter if the police are against us. It doesn't matter if they want to hurt peaceful people. We've got to come out. And when we have numbers, we have safety in numbers. That's what's going on.
Barack Obama says police murdering black people should not be normal unless he's president. Did Obama really say that? No, not exactly. He said these killings by police should not be normal. But when he was president, they were normal. They happened over and over. And what did Obama do about it then? Nothing. Well, he said a few weak-ass words about what a tragedy it was, and then he denounced as thugs the black youth who rose up in righteous rebellion after the police murder of Freddie Gray in Baltimore. And during Obama's presidency, the so-called Department of Justice, headed by Eric Holder, repeated the lie that Michael Brown did not have his hands up when he was killed by the pig Darren Wilson in Ferguson, Missouri. That Justice Department refused to file federal crime charges against Wilson. And under Holder, it supported every single act of police violence that came before the Supreme Court. Obama might as well have said that it's all right for black people to be murdered by police as long as people like him are president and presiding over this system. So much for things getting better for black people with Obama as the first black president. And that gets to the bigger truth. Trump is a blatant and vicious white supremacist. But no matter who is president, so long as this system is in power, it will keep on murdering black people and other oppressed people, time after time after time. To put a stop to this will take a revolution to put an end to this system.
All right, this is Luan from the RNL show, and we have a special guest for everyone today. This is somebody who's a revolutionary rock band, somebody who's been putting out their music in this moment. This is Miles Solay from Outernationals. How are you doing, Miles?
Good. Thank you for having me on. I've been watching, obviously, the Revolution Nothing Less show since the beginning. It's good to see you, and it's good to be on. Thank you.
All right. So, we got some questions for you because, we saw that this song just came out, America Goddamn, it was powerful. And we have some questions like what actually came about to make this song happen?
Goddamn! Fuck! 1964, Nina Simone wrote Mississippi Goddamn. It's one amongst a million beautiful songs that she has. She wrote this song in response to the assassination of Medgar Evers and the lynchings and brutality and sheer terror that Black people were facing in the South and all over this country. And in the beginning of that song, she said, "This song is Mississippi Goddamn, and I mean every word of it." And so this song, inspired by her fearlessness, is called America Goddamn, and I mean every word of it. And so this is the moment for it. I actually wrote this song, the lyrics, and recorded the vocals a few years ago. But goddamn, if not now, when? This is the most pertinent moment. We have this upsurge that's just breathtaking and not backing down and inspiring. So I wanted to bring this song out into the world now.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like it was written yesterday. It's very timely, very, on the mark, in this moment. And, I know I've been seeing like a lot of different artists have actually been, speaking out in different ways, been putting out their music. Meek Mill's, he's somebody who has been on has been conscious. People have recognized his music, but he put out something, in this recent time. You've had other artists who've been inspired and been putting out something, but I thought that what was captured in this song, actually put out something a little different on this question of America and actually raising a question of why, why even keep this. So I kind of wanted to ask you, what do you actually think about this moment, and what do you want to, say to other artists out there, and as well as people who are in the streets?
That's right. I mean, that's the question, and it's semi-real and semi-rhetorical. It's the last line of the second verse of America Goddamn. I mean, how the hell is a country that was founded on slavery and genocide and conquest, how the hell is this something to save? And that's how I feel. And I think that's the damn truth. In this moment right now, it's I don't think anybody could have, that we would 3 weeks ago, if you said we would be having people protesting of all backgrounds, against against the police terror and murder of Black people, and part of this massive Black Lives Matter uprising, in 500 towns across the country, that rebellious youth and others in Mississippi would protest, in Minneapolis, would be protesting day after day, and that the police precinct in Minneapolis would be burned down, and that people all around the world would start joining these protests, that statues commemorating slave owners and slave traders would be torn down. It's really a tremendous moment. It's a very dangerous moment still, because the stakes are high. But I felt that, America, goddamn, like really, and actually it's been refreshing that what I'm saying right now is actually something that a lot of people are talking about too. That's a very positive thing that I think, you know what I'm saying, in terms of like even the idea 1619, when the first a person from Africa enslaved was brought over here, and just the exposure of what Black people in this country, Africans who were enslaved and their descendants, for 300-400 years, and then the Jim Crow, and then the continued slow genocide and terror that Black people are subjected to under this system. The fact that even people are talking about it is in the they'd only be talking, they're talking about it because people are rebelling. And so I wanted to bring this song into that mix. Mm-hmm. And I hope people share it, America Goddamn, text it to everybody. I really want this, we're going to be I'm working with a bunch of different visual artists and trying to do multiple lyric videos. I want this song to get out there because I think it could have an impact, and it could influence people and inspire them and make them more mad.
Yeah, no, it's a great contribution, especially in this moment. People should, people who are watching this, they should go on YouTube, find it, America Goddamn with a C, even though in the song it has those 3 Ks, rightfully so. And, this is something that we really hope gets out there and really grows and is a part of this mix. You think about all these other, all the different songs and all the different things that are contributing to the defiance, and not just the defiance, but the joy, the joy of rebellion, in this moment, and that uplifting, spirit that's really drawn out and being brought out. And, we wanted to say thanks for coming onto the show. And, as well as if you we want to have you on the show a lot more. We want to see you. We want to hear, more from Outernational. And we also want to give a special thanks because, you've been providing the music for the opening of the show as well as the closing. And we really appreciate that. And actually, you were saying a little bit before something about some of the different voices in the song. So if you wanted a chance to say some of that, I want to give you a moment to say something about that.
That's right. Thank you. So once again, the song is called America Goddamn, and the title is inspired by, or borrowed, if you will, or expanded upon the powerful song from Nina Simone. Many people know about Nina Simone. If you don't know about Nina Simone, there's 2 great documentaries, and there's a plethora of music. Check out her music. But she wrote a song called Mississippi Goddamn. So that's where the title was borrowed from. I want to give just some recognition and a lot of love and appreciation as well to Stephanie Christian, who's a fantastic singer from Detroit, Michigan, whom I'm actually now thinking about it. I'm reminded that I met Stephanie because we performed together at a show in St. Louis, Missouri on the 1-year anniversary of the police murder of Mike Brown. And there was an uprising in Ferguson, and some artist, Talib Kweli, they organized a show against, did all these different artists against the police murder and sort of celebrating the uprising. And I met Stephanie there, and I invited her a few years later to be a part of this song. So that's her on the chorus singing, you coming for me, you want to take me out, in terms of just the rage, but just the lived reality of being on the receiving end of a genocide in America. And the song also opens with these quote with an interview from Nina Simone that she gave shortly before she died, where she was just, they were talking about asking her why she moved to France, what it was like living in France, because she left the U.S. She couldn't even be here anymore. So that's her at the beginning. This is and then I expressed appreciation to all the artists on there. I sampled Bob Avakian in the chorus, where he's talking about how many more tears if I can have to pour forth from the wounded hearts of these mothers and fathers and family members and all these people, everyone who has to live under this fear. And, got a shout out to my regular contributors and kick-ass musicians, Jesse Williams, Mark Bankston, who recorded and mixed and also provided therapy for me while we were, figuring out how to finish the song. As you guys know, in the show, it takes a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very excited. I hope this gets fucking heard,
Yeah, no, we do too. It's really important, we want to reach that out too as well. And, it's been a joy to have you on the show. We want to hear a lot more from you and, other artists and other people who are out there, especially special thanks to Outernational. And, if you want to say some closing words before we go, now's the time.
Well, I'm glad to be on here, and I think Revolution Nothing Less show is really important. I hope many more people can see it. I think I've said enough. Let the song speak for itself. But thank you for having me on, Luan, and everyone at Revolution Nothing Less. Big hug to you guys.
All right. Thank you, Miles. So that was Miles Solay from Outernational speaking about the song America Goddamn in the moment. And now we're going to go right to the song.
Slavery hasn't changed, my friend. It's just adopted a new face.
Goddamn! It's in the very fabric of American society. Goddamn! I couldn't stand it.
I'm treated like a piece of shit.
Goddamn!
I'm no more than a nigga.